first soliciting resumes and sending out press releases and contacting people who would be interested in serving. I had to balance my selections, understanding that even though I personally do not have any children, for example, in the Hartford school system, I do have one niece and 2 nephews who are in the system, for which they look to me and have looked to me in the past for guidance and support. 2 of them are now currently at the University of Connecticut, and one of them is in her last year of high school and doing very well. I had to understand that perhaps maybe Dr. Jose Colon Rivas doesn't have perhaps maybe children in the educational system, but serves thousands of young children and has in the past been an educator, mentor, and a principal to thousands of students, as is in the case with Mr. Matt Poland. So to the extent that people did not have children in the system, at least I needed to be comfortable that they have had, for every child that they perhaps didn't have, they would have to at least have several thousand children that they have serviced. So that's very important, and I also needed to balance the selections again in view of the other folks who are in the Board of Education, the other 4 members. You know, there are about 10 different criteria there: school construction experience, financial experience, professional experience. So what I try to do is understanding that I would not be able to get it perfect on all counts. Every time that I picked a person or selected a person, every time a person opted not to serve who was selected or asked, invited to join, it would create a sort of disjoint. This is the best that I can do. In addition to that criteria, because the mayor has a responsibility for education, I take that responsibility very serious. The reason that I came to this city with a suitcase at 15 was to get an education. It is a place of hope for many of our youth. It's something that I know, and I'm convinced in my heart of hearts, that will be a game changer for our children. The final analysis, I needed to be convinced that each one of these individuals would not let me down, would not let the community down. This is the best that I could produce, understanding that, as I said, it might not be the perfect from the visuals, but I know in terms of the commitment, the expertise, and the ability to make this board succeed, it is the best that I can produce. I've also encouraged each one of the nominees to make sure that as part of our mission, we continue to work with the other members to strengthen parental involvement and parental training.
Thank you. Could you describe your understanding of the key strategies that have helped Hartford Public Schools make the progress that it has over the last 5 years?
Absolutely. I think that the first commitment that we needed to do was leadership, and I think that that leadership came in the form of Dr. Adamowski and others that joined him to make sure that the educational reforms were taken seriously. So our support for Dr. Kishimoto, our support for the people who do the managing so that we do not do, and I agree with you, we're not here to micromanage the system. It is destructive. It sidetracks and corrupts and diverts the attentions of administrators to that which they are properly delegated. I think so leadership and support for that leadership is very important, and also to create accountability of that leadership for the evolution of reform efforts. Secondly, financial. These folks here need to be good, solid folks to go out to get the resources for our system. Just the same way that I go to our governor, just the same way that I go to Washington, D.C., and make sure that our educational funding is in place, I expect that each one of them joins us in our legislative delegations as well as council to advocate for the resources that we need in order for our system. It doesn't come cheap, but our children are worth each and every dollar of investment, and the investment that we have made thus far has shown results. Thirdly, we need to be innovative, creative, add to the process with new ideas, but also not lose track of the reform efforts that have been started. These members are committed to the basic premise that we need to increase and improve child readiness, which is important. We need to increase and support our middle and magnet school, our middle school population, and also college preparedness.
Yes, thank you. That I appreciate that answer because, you know, when you look at the bigger picture, we've only completed 5 years of basically a 15-year program to close the achievement gap in this city, and so we're basically a third of the way through it. So it's going to take a lot of committed leadership to really make that happen over the long term.
And let me tell you, to get 5 people who are totally committed to reform and understand that reform does pay off, that we've come away and that we need to continue along that route, is not easy, because there's people with whom perhaps maybe at a philosophical level I might have agreed on some counts, but we're making progress, and we can't make a U-turn, we can't make side turns. We have to continue on a straight path to academic success. Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, my first nominee to the Board of Education did not have a college degree, and I appointed her because I felt that she was capable to do the work. So I do not hold a standard that you need to have an advanced degree in order to be a part of this board. I also believe that through the electoral process and the 4 other members of the board, that you also have another additional opportunity to select basically anyone that's deemed in the eyes of our communities capable of serving. I also want to be mindful of one of the first people who served in our Board of Education, who I helped to pass her high school equivalency diploma and helped her with her college papers, and that was Maria Sanchez, who is not only a person who is a mentor, but someone that showed that it doesn't take a PhD for our community to move forward. Having said that, I want you to know, and I want you to be convinced, and I want to be able to look at you in the eye and tell you that I did not set forth with a process that said, unless you have a master's or a doctorate degree, you cannot be on this board. And that in my heart and in my mind, I was open to putting together the best group of people that can move our system forward. I think we need to be clear on what the mission of the board is, number one. I think we also need to provide these members and the other members of the board continued training so that we know what the expectations are, what our roles are, and make sure that things are dealt with in terms of broad policies that impact all corners of the system, rather than trying to play school principal or school teacher at different schools. That's too confusing for the administration. If we can identify inefficiencies in the system to particular failures of policy, then that's the level that we intervene. The other thing, at least from these 5, I think that they're going to spend their time trying to make review policy and also listening from experts and weighing and asking intelligent questions about proposals. I don't think that anyone here has the time to or would want to spend their time usurping the roles of those that we're paying very good money to do a job properly. Our job is to provide the tools, to provide the structure, the policy context for which the superintendent and others can execute.
Thank you. I have just one more question.
I think also I've looked into particular persons here and what they've done in the past in terms of crossing that line and being that sort of person. And I think that Dr. Sharita McIntyre has a doctorate in organizational leadership, so I think she clearly understands what those lines are. I think Dr. Jose Colon Rivas understands that, and I think the other 2 candidates, Matt and also Richard, understands that we cannot revert back to what created the problems years ago. And that's why I said we need to remember where we were at, because we can't repeat those mistakes again.
Why appoint yourself to the Board of Education? Explain your rationale and what you were thinking, so that everyone would kind of know what your thoughts were.
You know, it's something definitely that I avoided. But I think it came out of a sense of conviction that this is just so important. And I want to do everything possible to make sure that I equip myself with the information, the needs, the challenges, the policy considerations. This is something that's very dear to me, and I think that when I look at our charter and why the mayor was given that ability to name 5 people, when I look at the progress that was made by previous mayoral involvement in the board, when I look at the national trend and I see mayors in other cities in which they're encouraging and actually advocating for mayoral involvement in education, when I look at the fact that it is the most important issue confronting our city, it became a matter of conscience.